My name is LaToria. I am hip hop, spoken word artist, speaker, songwriter. I love the Lord and I love people. And so this is just my offering um, in response to and as a result of all of the crazy stuff that has been going on currently in the news and in current events. And for us as African Americans, just as a response to the continuous trauma that we endure and live with on a regular basis. I just wanted to create a space for us to be able to speak about how we feel and engage one another with love. I'm so excited because this is part two. Yesterday, I really just kind of opened up the floor for us to collectively process and collectively just think through and kind of say out loud, or at least as much as you can on an IG live, right? How you're feeling, what you're going through, what your thoughts are with the situation with George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and so many other things going on. So this is part two. I got my sis Dieula who's going to join me here in just a few minutes. And she is a licensed counselor, and she is going to kind of basically help us get our life. You know what I'm saying? So I'm excited about that. And I think she might be trying to jump in here. Let's see.
There she
Hey.
go. There
Hey,
she go.
you.
Hey, sis.
I should have worn my shirt. I
Oh,
have one like
yeah,
that.
right.
Yes, it's my favorite.
I love it. Quick plug. Natural
Yes.
Beauty shirts. Get yours
Yeah.
now.
Let me tell you.
LaToriamusic.com.
It's
It'll
good
make you feel
stuff.
better. I
That's right.
promise.
It will.
Right. So, Dula, I just want to first and foremost say thank you so much, sis, for joining in on this conversation and just for being willing to offer your expertise and your words of wisdom and the insight that I know God is giving you to share with everyone that will watch this for such a time as this and all the times before and after this.
Right, right.
So we'll just jump right into it. Can you first and foremost just kind of tell us, for those of you who may not be familiar with who you are and your work, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Yeah, thank you for having me on here. I am so honored to be in this space to, I call it being a wounded healer because as
Mm,
Black women, um, yes, we are wounded, but at the same time, creating space for other women to heal, to be elevated, is something that we do. And so I feel honored in this season to be able to um, carry both, carry the
wow.
fact that, I'm traumatized too, I'm healing myself in my own way. And we'll talk about that. And at the same time, be at a place of creating space for other women who are going through stress and trauma and help them through it with some of the things that I know. Like you said, my name is Dieula Previlon. It's a funky name from Haiti. I was born in Haiti. I grew up in New Jersey, and I've been in Texas with my family, three boys and a husband. My boys are 21 and twins that are 19.
Wow.
And so, yeah, we have a high level testosterone in my house. And so I'm
Whoa.
the only one trying to, you know, balance all of that. Some days I win, some days I lose, and it's all good. um, so as far as what I do, I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm also an ordained minister through the Evangelical Covenant Church. I've worked in churches. I was a missions pastor at one time, and I was associate pastor at another church where I led some racial reconciliation ministry. So I do a lot of international work. I have a nonprofit called Elevate Her International, where we do trauma training for women all around the world. And so
Mm.
trauma is the thing that very early on in my career ministry, really, that I realized trauma is something that we need to address in the church. We need to address in ministry. And so and trauma is something that I've seen from the moment I was born to
Mm.
now, and I think I'll continue to see trauma until my dying days. But it's definitely something that I felt the Lord, has given me the heart to do. Many people will hear some of what I do, and some of the stories I hear, and they're like, "How do you sleep at night?"
Mm.
And the reality is, I think when God calls you to something, He also equips you to handle what He's called you to, and for you to
Wow.
learn that you ain't God, because I'm not God. And so I know my limits. I know cases that I can take and cases that I can't take.
Mm.
And so I know, what my limits are. And knowing those limits have allowed me to step into this space of healing with women and with other people, because I'm like, I'm only here to do my part.
Right.
So I stay focused in my lane, and
Yeah.
that's that. I ain't trying to fix the whole world, because I can't.
It's
That's why
funny.
we need you. We need others. We need all the sisterhood to show up. Pull up, sisterhood,
Absolutely.
okay?
Yes. Yes.
And so
Absolutely.
that keeps me, I sleep at night because of that, because I know I'm not enough
Yeah.
for all the work in the world, and that we need the sisterhood to show up
Sis. That's
with all of
crazy.
our gifts. Yeah.
Yeah, a really close friend of mine was actually literally saying those exact words to me earlier this morning. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't even think about trying to put the burden of restoration on
Uh-huh.
your back.
Mm-mm.
Don't even try. Like contribute. Stay in
Yep.
your lane. Do
Stay
what
in
you
your
can in your
lane.
lane,
Yep.
and add to the collective whole. So that's confirmation for me for sure,
Yep.
because it's the second
Yep.
time I'm hearing it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
today.
And I
Wow.
think that's where we thrive the most. And that's where God gets the most glory. And that's where we do our best work. When we can stay in that lane
Mhm.
and just kind of live there and become
Yeah.
it and thrive and get better and better.
Mhm.
It's such a sacred thing to do when you can stay in your lane and do it well and honor God well in it. So
Yeah.
I'm learning that. Because there was a season where I'm like, I need to be in this lane and that lane.
Right, doing all the lanes, just flowing around because you all over the place,
Exactly.
having
Nope.
that spirit of doing too much. I've
Exactly.
been guilty of that. I've been guilty of
I've
that.
been guilty of that, doing too much.
Well, for the sake of the conversation tonight, like I really, just want to call upon you to kind of help us. So we're centering Black women tonight, and just
Yeah.
I see a couple of people hopping on just to kind of reiterate, guys. Like this space is really centering Black women and us processing who we're becoming. You see that right there?
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
we're processing, and just as a result of the current traumatic events that have happened, that's what we're focused on tonight. Next week, we'll be focused on the fellas, but just for the few people that hopped in, please feel free to listen and hang around, but that's what the focus is. And so, Dieula, I guess we'll start with just a high-level definition of trauma.
Right.
Could you help us kind of start there?
Yeah. Trauma, I would say, is a distressing event that happens to us that is so distressing that it shatters how you think. It disturbs how you think, how you feel, how you sleep. It disturbs your body rhythms. It disturbs your emotions. It disturbs how you live, because the event is so out of ordinary. It's so foreign that there you go. We just had an Amber Alert.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about
Uh,
that.
no, it's okay. So the event is so foreign to what we know is normal that it just disturbs everything. It disturbs everything. So that's the high level definition of trauma. It's a distressing event. It can happen to us, or we can be watching it happen to someone else on a secondary level. And that's why sometimes when we see something happen to someone else, it is traumatic for us because this event leaves us into feeling as if we're gonna die. And so when we have that feeling, when that distressing event happens, it sends us into fight, flight, or freeze mode. Like we either fight for our lives, we either run for our life, or we freeze for our life. Those are survival instincts that instantly kicks in the minute a distressing event happens or is happening to someone else. And
Wow.
the interesting thing about trauma is that when that thing happens and it triggers this response in our brain, and our brain goes into fight, flight, or freeze zone, it releases all this hormone into our bodies, like cortisol, right? And it releases it into our bodies, and instantly, some people feel their heart rates. When something distressing happens and your heart rate is beating, it's because of the hormone it releases into your body. Your blood pressure increases, your blood glucose level increases, your respiration, like it feels, some people will say it literally felt like I can't breathe. Your muscles can tense up. All this stuff is happening at the moment of trauma, and it's really the body's way of surviving. Now, if it's one traumatic event, that's fine. Go into survival mode, body.
Right.
And so you better help me survive this trauma. And so
Yeah.
God is just amazing how it creates our body, because, that's supposed to happen when danger is around us. That, yeah, body take over. It's so automatic. It takes over as a way of protecting us. So that's the high definition of trauma. And we'll go into, racial trauma, what makes that even what makes it even more important for us to understand what happens with racial trauma.
Go ahead and go on into it, sis.
Oh,
That was my
okay,
next
okay.
question. Go on the segue.
Yeah.
It was smooth. Go ahead.
So racialized trauma is interesting because, as I just talked to you about just one trauma event, racialized trauma for women is interesting because it's something that happens continually. So let's say, all this stuff is happening, fight, flight, or freeze. And cortisol is being released into your body constantly. Now, this is only supposed to happen for like one event, when, danger happens. Okay, boom, it happens. We're out of the danger and it's cleared.
Right.
But racial trauma, it's something that you live in. And so your body is constantly releasing this hormone into your body, into the cells are releasing this hormone into your body. And when that happens over and over again, that's where Black people, we see the high blood pressure issues. That's where we see the heart issues, endocrine issues, issues, like women having blood issues, issues with fibroids, body aches, all of those issues start happening because our body is breaking down because of the trauma, because it's releasing this hormone all the time. And the body is literally tired. So I hear the
Wow.
word tired all the time because the body is working so hard all the dang time,
Wow.
all the time. And what happens with trauma too is that as the body is working all the time, there's this thing that happens to us is that we're hypervigilant. You ever notice that when a loud sound hits and we jump? For Black people, I think it's a different jumping that happens, because all of a sudden it's not just a jumping, but it triggers a
Yes.
fear response, and your heart again starts pumping, and your body temperature increases, blood pressure, and all of that. So it's not just
Absolutely.
so it's that startle response that happens all the time. You're jumping.
Yes.
Yeah,
For me, my automatic is my fist ball up. Like
yeah,
it's instantly fight. For me, I guess so
yep,
fight is where I fall the category that I fall in. I don't know what
yep,
I'm finna hit or what
yep,
I'm hitting at. All I know
yep.
is I heard a loud sound, protection mode. That's
Yep,
you know?
exactly. It's your survival instinct. Your
Wow.
survival instinct kicks in, and it just wants to protect yourself. And some people fare better. Some people are more resilient when it comes to trauma.
Mhm.
Um, our people are resilient people because they wouldn't be here if they weren't resilient. We
Yes.
wouldn't be here. I'm sorry. We
Facts.
wouldn't be here if our people weren't resilient. So studies have shown that the majority of people are resilient enough to recover from trauma. There are some people that are not as resilient. It forms into post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's a disorder, and it is debilitating, where people can't wake up from sleep, where people can't function. They're depressed, they have anxiety, they're tired all the time, they're afraid to go out, they're having nightmares. That's post-traumatic stress disorder. Some people literally have that because of racialized trauma.
Wow.
you know and even for me, raising Black sons, I've noticed
Mm.
how some of the instructions I give them are instructions based on trauma, right? So it's like, be careful, or pay attention to your surroundings, make sure you're not in this environment, make sure. So it's all because of trauma that I feel like my parenting even,
Yes.
has
Sis,
to change because of trauma.
can I just speak to like a real life example that just happened today?
Yeah.
I took my nephew to the basketball court this afternoon, just because he's working on his game, and
Yeah.
there was this young man there, teenage guy, like you could his body language and his subtle interactions, he just seemed like a gentle spirit, and he just had this constant like smile on his face, and it looked
Wow.
like it almost his face almost looked like, if I smile and if I look bright, then I don't look like I'm a threat. And I
Wow.
just kept watching him, and it was
Yep.
like nobody
Yep.
was there, but he
Yep.
just,
Yep.
and I couldn't help it, man. Like my spirit was just moved so much
Yep.
that I just went over and I just talked to him, like,
Yeah.
what's up, little
Yeah.
bro,
Yeah.
and just
Exactly.
tried to encourage him to say, hey, I see you, and
Yeah.
like disarm yourself,
Yeah.
like you're by yourself. It's not necessary for you to, and you could see that he just kind of rested.
Yep. Yep.
And I just was like, wow. Like
Yep.
I told him, I said, I see your smile and I understand why you're
Yeah.
doing it,
That's good. That's good.
But just to your point, it just made me wonder, like, dang, did his mom or his parents, whoever's, raising him, did they teach him, like, try to present yourself as
Yeah.
non-threatening as possible, because it was like you just have this fake smile on your face, bro. And
Yeah, yeah. And he probably, that's his way of surviving too. Our children have
right,
been watching.
yeah,
They have been watching what's happening in our nation, and they've been studying, and so they know that in order to survive, I need to behave a certain way. And you know what you just did was you really created an opportunity to help him soothe his angst. And so trauma healing is really about that. As a community, we can touch each other. We can show up for
wow,
each other and create a soothing capacity for him to say, it's okay.
yeah,
You can breathe. You
yeah,
don't have to fight. You can be yourself. You can rest. So trauma healing is really about that. It's really
hmm,
about the community coming together and creating this um, empathetic space where we can just breathe, whether it be breathe our stories, whether it be to exist. Like this space here, as we're talking, we're allowing people to come in
hmm,
and join the conversation. We're creating healing space because
hmm,
people can show up and tell their stories if they want, and
hmm,
they can listen and they can be validated. And because you validated
yes,
him in that moment, you told him that his life mattered in that moment, right? And
hmm,
so part of the healing for racialized trauma is for people to come alongside and say, I see you, I hear you, your life matters, your story matters, and your story is real.
yeah,
You know how many children don't tell about their trauma because they believe that their parents will discredit their trauma? And so to imagine someone coming to you and say, I believe you,
yeah,
I see you, your life matters.
wow.
That's part of the healing. And I think that's what you offered up to him in that
That's so
moment.
powerful, sis. And
Mm-hmm.
what's crazy, my aunt Rocky, she's on here watching, and she just put down here the very thing that I was thinking as I was listening to you talk, and that was that used to be the part of, a
Yep.
part of the church experience,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so it's just like, as you were talking, I was just thinking about, this is what the Black church has
Absolutely.
been to us
Mm-hmm.
throughout history. It's the one
Exactly.
place where we all have a shared experience, where
Exactly.
you can holler and cry
Exactly.
and run and skip
Exactly.
and pass out and just
Just be seen.
release. Yeah, yeah,
Be
yeah, 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 yeah. And
seen.
it's in a place where, and nobody's studying you. Like, I've
Exactly.
always found that to be fascinating and beautiful and comforting, that I can express whatever it is that I'm going through in that environment, and nobody studies me. Like,
Yeah. No
nobody.
white gaze. No white
Oh
gaze. No
no,
performance. I don't have to
no,
perform for
no
anyone.
volume control. No,
Exactly. Yep.
yeah,
None of that. And that's the
wow.
importance of the white church, the black church, because
Mhm.
the reality is, think about it this way. For 240, 50 years, our people in America, I'm from the Caribbean, but we had slavery too,
Yeah.
at one time, Haiti was the pearl, they call it the pearl of the Antilles, which means everyone wanted Haiti
Mm.
because it was so profitable. So we
Wow.
had these shared experiences. Even black women in Brazil, the black people in Brazil, they're the largest group of black people outside of Africa, right?
Mm.
So we
Wow.
have these shared experiences of slavery. And
Mhm.
so I think that's why we all can come together and talk about slavery, how brutal it really was, right?
Mhm.
In America, though, imagine this: 250 years of slavery, brutal slavery, where women were breeders, where women were raped, where women were mutilated, where families were stripped apart. I mean, you name it, we had it. 240 years.
Mm.
No trauma healing, counseling, no intervention, nothing. Okay, that's 240 years. Then, we were freed, um, and went into a reconstruction time, which was marked by lynching,
Mhm.
right? Where people were terrified, horrified, and that they would be lynched. I mean, it was horrifying, right? No healing, no trauma healing, no counselors, no
Mm.
intervention for this for the years of Reconstruction. Then it was the civil rights movement, you know. Dogs were put at our people, fire hose and more lynching and voter suppression, microaggression,
Bombing.
redlining, bombing, you name it. Again, no intervention.
Mm.
So that's how we have this generalized, this generational trauma that all of these years, 400 years of slavery, Reconstruction, civil rights movement, and no intervention, no fairness, no justice in a real sense of reparations, no confession, no repentance, no form of something that you can say, perhaps this is a way towards healing.
Mhm.
Yes, things have gotten better, we're
Mhm.
no longer enslaved, but we still have so many issues that cause our lived experiences to not feel as if we're full human in a country that's ours, right?
Right.
And so the whole generational trauma, and I've been reading, I just got this book called The Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr.
Yes.
Joy DeGruy, and she talks about this
Mhm.
generational trauma. And the reality is this is time for us to really start addressing our trauma,
Mhm.
the trauma that was passed down, that our ancestors never healed from, that was transmitted to our great grandparents, and our great grandparents had to deal with it. Then our grandparents, then our parents, and now us.
Mhm.
So, how do we start taking steps forward into healing spaces
Yeah.
as we're still dealing with trauma, right?
Yeah.
So that's that's something that will take more than counseling sessions,
Yeah.
more than a church service.
Absolutely.
It's going to require all of us. So I'll let
Absolutely.
you to ask some questions as as you think through some of what I've shared.
If you saw me looking down, it's because I'm taking notes. I'm just like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
Jesus.
Uh-huh.
Yes. I see
Yes.
people on here doing the same, like, oh my gosh, that's so good. And you said so much. It's like
Yeah.
a mouthful. As I listen to you talk, I start to wonder, like you said, like these steps, right? There's counseling and
Mm-hmm.
there's the safe spaces, but my heart and my desire is for us as Black folks to take the lead on creating a culture of healing.
Right.
You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
and you see spurts of it where more and more Black folks are starting to be public about the fact that they are going to therapy, that they
Right.
are going to counseling, and I would love to see a culture of that where it exudes,
Mm-hmm.
where it's in the art, it's in the movies, it's in the TV shows. Like there is this unified voice that says we need to do our own work to
Right.
pursue our own healing.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And like at the
Exactly.
beginning of the conversation, what you were saying about the church, I think the church plays a huge
A
role
huge role.
in advocating for that and encouraging people to recognize trauma, to call
Yeah.
that thing by its name. You know what I
By its
mean?
name. By its
Um,
name. I think it's going to be, the work of trauma healing for Black people is so big that it can't just rest with counselors.
Right.
So that means we need to create these types of spaces. When we were talking about this show, and I'm like, LaToria, I
Go
need
there.
you. I need you.
Go there,
I
sis.
need you to take notes, learn about trauma, learn about what it does, so that the next time you have another event, you're like, listen, here's what I heard about trauma healing.
Do you
Okay?
know how I'm
And
already writing music that is doing that, sis?
let me
Like,
tell you, it needs that.
yes.
Because I'm not enough, as I said at the beginning of the show. And so all of my sisters will need to come together,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And learn about trauma, be trauma informed.
Mhm.
Be trauma informed in everything that we do. The church needs to be trauma informed.
That's so good.
Organizations need to be trauma informed. Rappers need to be trauma informed. Poets. And the funny thing is, LaToria, we've been doing that.
Yeah.
Okay? Because if you read, just this morning, I was reading some of Langston Hughes' poetry,
Yes.
the art, all
Mhm.
of that has been a way for us to express the trauma and to heal from the trauma. And I need us
Mhm.
to continue to do that, for
Mhm.
us to express the trauma and to find ways to heal from the trauma. For us to say, like Kendrick Lamar, we gonna be all
We
right.
gonna be alright.
I mean, that was like,
It speaks to the soul. Like, you have to
exactly,
find a proclamation that matches what
yep,
we've been resolving for centuries. For centuries,
exactly.
we have been resolving. We gonna be all right.
Exactly. 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 And I think that's the language of trauma healing. It's like, sis, bro, come on. We gonna be all right. We got this. And it's that type of, proclamation, that outcry that we all need to gather together and say, we gonna be all right. We gonna do this trauma healing thing together. We're gonna do it through the
Mhm.
arts. We're going to do it through the church needs to be trauma healing, to be trauma informed.
Yeah.
Organizations working in Black and Brown communities. How you gonna be working in Black and Brown communities and not
And you not
know
trauma informed. You
and
don't know
not
that you might be the
know
one causing the trauma.
exactly and not know the context of why we're in this Black and Brown community? How you gonna do that? Like, I need you to know, right? And so be trauma informed is the first one.
Yeah.
Be social justice informed too, right? Because the
Mm.
reality is, this type of trauma, I don't know if it's going to go away overnight.
It's
So
not.
that means we need to advocate for justice. As
Yeah.
we're healing from trauma, we need you to take your knee off our necks.
Facts.
So that's the social justice part that
Mhm.
needs to go hand in hand
Mhm.
with trauma healing. Like, as we're being trauma informed, I also need to be social justice informed as well,
That's so good.
right?
That's so good.
It can't just be, I'm healing, but you stay keeping your knee on my neck. I mean, I need that knee off
So I can breathe.
so I can breathe. So I can breathe. So as
Jesus.
we're advocating for trauma informed work, we need to be social justice informed as well. Figure out how to fight to make sure that we continue to live and that there's no hindrances, for
Mm.
us to fully live out our life, to fully live out the image of God that we are, to flourish. I want
Yeah.
to flourish. I don't want to just survive.
I know, sis.
We want
I
to
know.
flourish. And so social justice creates opportunities for Black women to go to school,
Mhm.
for Black women to get the resources they need, for Black mamas to have their babies safely, for Black women to be making a little bit of money too. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, where was it that I heard that for every $100, was it the Oprah show yesterday? For every $100 white families make, Black families make $5. So that's not just,
It's
something's
not.
happening there,
Something is
right?
very wrong.
Something's very wrong. So social justice has to be in there to make sure the playing field is level for equitable practices to be happening, because something's wrong, right?
Yeah.
So as we are trauma informed, we need to be social justice informed. And the other thing is, yes, take
That's
care of
so
yourself.
good.
Take care of yourself. We got to survive this. You know, we have to survive this.
Yeah.
You know, because if our ancestors didn't survive, we wouldn't be here continuing the fight. So we
Facts.
have to survive this. And the way to do it is by taking care of ourselves, right? We gotta take care of ourselves. Whether, you know, for me, I do boot camp because I want to kick something.
Yeah.
I want to release this thing that's in me. I want to run. I want to kick something. I want to kickbox. I want to do
Yeah.
something. I want to go on the track and run and walk like I'm running towards freedom. Okay?
Yes.
I gotta do something physical for my body. You know, you
Absolutely.
you have to take care of yourself. And physical, because trauma is so embodied.
Yes.
Every part of our body is impacted. In the same way, for the healing to happen, we have to go out there and walk. You know, and walk, do something physical, breathe, do something fun, learn to
Wow.
sew again, learn to knit,
Yeah.
rap, write poetry,
Yeah.
you know, write songs, learn a new instrument, you know, something to keep reminding you that we need to be all right. I
Yeah.
need to be all right for my children, for, you know, my sisters. I need to take care of myself in order to be all right. So
Wow.
we have to take care of ourselves, mind, body, and soul. We have to find ways to self-soothe that's not destructive, right? You know, I create space in my little room that I have, you know, I light a candle, I, you know, take a long shower, or I mean, I started gardening. I'm like, my thumb ain't green, but I started gardening. And it's so
Wow.
soothing for me. It is so soothing for me to do that, because it's a way of taking care of myself.
Yeah.
Dancing. I mean, I was on a panel the other
Yes.
day, and there was a doula there, and she said, "Did you know twerking is a part?"
I was. Go ahead.
Yes, go,
Go ahead.
LaToria,
No,
go,
no,
go,
no. Say it.
go.
No, because
Movement.
yes, and that movement in itself did not originate with what we know it to be, and what I dare I say white supremacy has turned it into.
Exactly.
Like,
Yep.
it didn't start there. Like, there's a long tradition before then. You know what I'm saying? And so
Exactly.
I just too recently learned that, and it's just like there's something about dance
Yes.
that is in our DNA for whatever reason. Typically, the Lord allowed us to move how we move and just to be a rhythmic people. But like,
Yes.
I don't know. But go ahead and say specifically what you wanted to say in regards
No,
to
I
to
mean,
twerking.
she was talking about how twerking is like moving the trauma, because again, trauma is embodied. And so she's talking about womb health. And she's like, our womb, okay, is a center for our healing as well, okay? And so if when we're twerking and we're moving, and for me, I'm from the Caribbean, so I'm doing the whining, you know,
Yes.
how that is a part of our healing, that those dance moves, moving our bodies and clapping our hands. And, I do a
Mm-hmm.
lot of work around the world when it comes to trauma healing. And we can't just do trauma healing sitting down, listening to it. We have to experience it. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to clap our hands. We're going to dance.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to show you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we do when we're around the world. In
Mm-hmm.
Haiti, we're singing
Mm-hmm.
songs, we're clapping, we're dancing, because
Yes.
all of that is a part of the healing. It's not just in the head, it's in the body. The body has to move the
Wow.
trauma as well, to create resiliency. So
That's such good
self-care is
insight.
self-care. Self-care is important. So be trauma informed, social justice informed, and
Yes.
self-care. And the last thing I would say is spirituality. We've always
Mm-hmm.
had that spirituality. One
Mm-hmm.
of my the women that I follow, what's her name? Christina Cleveland. A few weeks ago, she wrote that hopelessness is a privilege thing. There are some of us, we can't afford to be hopeless because it would be the death of us. We can't afford to be hopeless. Imagine our ancestors getting so hopeless to the point of death, of despair. We wouldn't be here. So she said, and I've been sitting with that word, okay?
That's heavy,
Hopelessness
sis.
is a form of privilege
Privilege.
that some of us ain't got the fortitude to be hopeless. Because guess what? On Monday morning, we need to work. Those kids need to go to school. We need, we gotta keep moving.
Wow.
We don't have the privilege to be hopeless.
Wow.
So there's the spirituality that I believe that we need to tap into
Yes.
for our hope. When we feel like hope is waning, when we feel like we no longer have hope, we feel like, oh, God is not showing up, we lament. And lamenting is very biblical. How come,
Yes.
God, you ain't showing up?
Yes.
That's
How
very
long,
biblical.
Lord?
How long? How long, Lord? But that's a part of the relationship with God, is to ask God these questions, because God isn't fragile.
Mm.
Some people are so fragile. You ask them a question, they can't even, handle the question. God
Yes.
is big enough for us to ask him big questions like, how
Yes.
long? What you doing up there? And
Yes.
so our spirituality, tap into our spirituality. I think for our healing as Black women, we already have some great things working for us because we're communal.
Mm-hmm.
We love community. We love coming together and
Mm-hmm.
just everybody's invited. And like
Mm-hmm.
we're having a little get together, a little get together is
Right.
never a little get together. So you always cook, because just in case
Right.
uncle this and cousin
Yeah.
this and our second cousin from my grandfather.
And your play cousin.
Exactly. Our play cousins. But we have that in our DNA, the community in our DNA, that it already creates this atmosphere for healing, because
Mm-hmm.
community is a part of the healing. Social community support, when the community is healthy, it creates an atmosphere for good healing. And so that's what
Wow.
you've created here, that okay, we're going to have a community together. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
commune together and share the space together so
Yeah.
that we can heal, because that's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yes.
what we
And
do.
and
So I
so
want to
from
stop there. Ask some
yes,
questions.
because I know you could go, sis. You could go.
Yep. Yep.
So I definitely want to open up the floor for people that are still here to ask questions. If you want to ask questions, if you think of a question between now and tomorrow evening, shoot me a DM at LaToria Music, and we will try to make sure that we address your question. In the midst of them maybe thinking about their question, sis, you just tack on with what you just said, the work that you're doing with the groups that you're getting ready to start.
Yeah, so speaking about community, started thinking about, well, last year, really, before the new year started, we wanted to start some racial trauma healing groups for Black women in January. And a whole bunch of stuff happened in my life and was not able to start it in January. But we're working on starting it at the end of this month. And so it's a space for Black women to come together and heal together. It's a space where we share a little bit of what we shared tonight, a little bit of psychoeducational, talking about what is trauma, what it does to our bodies, what it does to our brains. And then we talk about, practical tips to heal from said trauma. And create a sisterhood, really, for these women that will be coming to our group. We will have only space for 10 women. For 6 weeks, we will gather together. So that's coming up at the end of the month. If you need more information, or if you'd like to participate, or you feel like that would be something for you, just DM me and we'll talk. But that's what I'm planning on doing, is create even more space for Black women to heal.
Wow, that's so good, sis.
Yes,
that's so good. And so for all of my white brothers and sisters that are on here who are wondering, what is something that you can do now in the midst of becoming more educated and self-aware, contributing financially to the work that Dieula is doing, just to help fund that process, is definitely something that you can do. And so I'm going to put her handle on here so that you guys, if that's something that you're interested in doing, you can do that. Yeah. I know my worth asked the question, what kind of training can we start to help people with trauma?
Yeah, there are many organizations that are doing trauma-informed training right now. I know Alliance of Greater Work, they've been doing some trauma-informed training for anyone who are interested in learning more. I think everyone should, at some point, you don't have to be a therapist, you don't have to be a counselor, you don't have to be a pastor. I think everyone should learn about trauma, because not only for your trauma, but for other people around you that are dealing with trauma. Learning those tips, learning about trauma itself, and becoming aware of the language of trauma is a way for communities to help heal one another. So if you want more information, I can give you more information if you follow me and DM me as well.
Awesome. Well, we'll leave the space open in case there's anyone else that has another question that you want to ask. And in the interim of that, Dieula, I just want to say thank you so much, sis, for your time, for your wealth of wisdom that you've showered upon us this evening. There's so many things that you said that I just, I'm going to go back and think about and just be praying about, like, what can I contribute to our current reality to help make, the next generation's reality different. I daydream about what free Blackness actually looks like. I daydream about what it looks like for our kids to be raised from equality being normative and not survival being normative. And so I think that starts with just small efforts like this and just putting into action, putting into action the words and the things that you've said today. And so for whatever reason, my little keyboard is not working, but Dieula's Instagram is at DIEULAP. Is that right? Okay.
Yes, I can put it up there as well.
Sure, sure. So she will be back with us again tomorrow evening, and we're just gonna have like a part 3 and kind of wrap this space up. So I appreciate everybody that's kind of chimed in and hung out with us for a little while. Dieula, again, thank you so much for the time, sis. You
Yeah,
are
you're
a jewel
welcome.
and a treasure.
You are so welcome. And I'm thankful for you for being obedient and seeing a need and using your platform and using what at your exposure and getting it done. So I'm very
Mm,
thankful for you. And I think, like I keep saying, it's this work is so big that it's going to need warrant all of us. You know,
yeah.
so
Amen.
keep it up.
Amen.
There was a
Yes, sis.
question.
Sure.
Okay. What type of advice do you suggest we give to our children? Um, Children are more resilient than we think they are. You know, children can handle it. I think the same, I'm telling you for adults, it's the same thing for the children. Self care for kids, you know.
Hmm.
Um, Turning off the news every once in a while for the children, taking them outside to play, you know, letting them be kids as much as you can. Let them be kids. You know, my boys have been helping me with the garden. You know,
Hmm.
we play a lot with children. Just play a lot with the children. Share the importance of what's happening with them, but also create time for play, create time for laughter, create time for music, for dance with them, create some time for fun. You know, that when they're in your home, they can feel safe and know that I know out there always safe, but when I see mom, when I see dad, when I see auntie, when, you know, I'm in their space, I felt safe. So for children, creating that safe space for them um, is what, you know, is will be helpful for them in their own trauma as they're
Hmm.
seeing this trauma, you know. So for
Yeah.
us adults, we're responsible to take care of the little ones.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. Self care for kids. Wow.
Yep. Yeah. Because if we ain't all
Wow.
right, they ain't gonna be all right.
So
They're watching
true.
us.
Wow.
Yeah.
So before we leave, that book that you mentioned, could you hold it up
Um,
again?
it's it's post traumatic slave syndrome. I'll write it in there. Post
Sure.
traumatic slave syndrome. Okay. Here it is. Dr. Joy
Wow. I
DeGruy.
know that's going to be such an
Yeah.
informative read. She's got some talks online too, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does. She
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. I plan on listening on some of that. Well, sis, I'm excited for part 3 tomorrow. I'm gonna let you get
Yeah.
some
Yeah,
rest
let's
and
do
some
it.
downtime.
Yes.
And thank you again so much.
You're
And we'll talk
welcome.
tomorrow.
Yeah,
Sounds
we'll
good?
do. Have
All
fun,
right.
guys.
All
Enjoy
right.
yourself and do some
Bye,
twerking.
y'all. Do some twerking. I know some of y'all was like,
Yeah. What is that?
all things were made by him
Yes,
and for
that's
him.
right. That's
Huh?
right.
Huh?
That's right. Amen.
Yes, yes. All right,
Oh,
sis. We'll
goodness.
talk tomorrow.
All right, we'll do.
Bye.
Bye.